How's the red? I
Well,
don't know
I'm,
if
tr-
I
I'm
recognize
trying
that
to,
one.
yeah, pick it up a little bit. This
I
is
thought of you
Valentine's
during
Friday.
the Oscars.
Oh yeah.
There was a woman that had a dress on, but she had this very cool, over-the-shoulder. They were stone-ish, but they were sparkling, and it was just like one piece of bead thing. And I thought, oh, Dr. Foley would love that.
I
That was a
love it.
nice formal dress.
Yeah, yeah. I've gotten some nice emails from the folks that we sent letters out
Yeah.
to, and so I'll forward them to you. But I just wanted to.
And I got one from Jerry Mayo,
Uh
and he had CC Tony on it, and it was just the basic, like, I'm worried about this, 4 deans in 5 years, or 3 deans in 5 years, whatever. But he said, I trust you guys, I'm with you. I just, I want to make sure
Sure.
everyone's as sensitive to that. And I said,
Sure.
absolutely. We feel the same way, and we need the right person for the right amount of time
Right.
in order to affect. And it's the way that it turned out that we're able to say, well, this was unexpected for us too.
And so, how did you were at the meeting with them, and
Sylvia
so
did
how
great.
did the faculty staff respond?
They were. There was a fair amount of questions. She asked for volunteers.
Sorry, I've been lacking. You know when somebody just says like on your text messages, you're like, this is for later. I have so many like flag emails that I should get to sooner or later. I heard something about a scholarship request. Oh. Oh, yeah, your parking. Honestly, I would just put all the parking ones in one pile because we're only gonna have to designate basically one of them. Because that was about public transportation, which is like parking and traffic.
And then I have a date in early March to see her in New York.
Oh, good. Okay.
You did an awesome job.
Thank you.
I loved your promos, video work. That was great.
So it was from my direction, but I was very thankful to Norma Torres' staff for doing it.
Well, I took Frank and they go and take this trip. Okay. Comes down to the I just keep getting more and more interesting.
It was like a reality TV show.
Exactly what it is.
Trying to dress like me. Sorry, I get why has more at the This is the public.
got it yet, but I'm gonna catch
It
up
was
tonight.
after the announcement.
Yeah, and that's when it went down. So there's a gap. Somebody told me I didn't know that until somebody told me that.
Ready?
Yes, just about to get started. Something I might go up. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Let me ask you to take a seat because it is time for Pizza with the Presidents. Yeah, yes. I am Dr. Reggie Blaylock, Presidential Associate for Community and Campus Partnerships and the Student Experience. Listen, if you have a question, and I hope you have a question, please fill out the piece of paper on your table. You can raise a hand, we'll come grab it. You can bring it down front if you like. We have a short amount of time. We want to maximize our time this evening. So please make sure you grab a slice of pizza. Oh, grab a slice of pizza. We've been making pizza to make sure you're ready to go. So I asked, are we having pizza and chicken wings and meatballs and pasta? That's not this program. But we're going to have a great evening. We're going to have some fun. We're going to answer questions and try to be as diligent as we can with moving each question so that every student can get their questions answered. If for some reason we don't get to all of the questions, please make sure your personal information is on your piece of paper so that we can contact you after the program. We will follow up to make sure we get your questions answered. If not this evening, then we'll make sure we follow up tomorrow. I want to welcome our presidents. Let's give our #1 student advocate at the institution a round of applause, Pasindu Sinatra, and our president, Dr. Soraya Coley. Let's give her a round of applause. The format will be, we'll be taking questions online, and make sure I get this right. We'll take them online, and we'll be taking them at the microphones if you want to stand and ask a question, and we'll take them via the written paper as well. Our students that will be receiving the questions will be, I want them to wave to you. Most of you know who they are. Where's Rachel? Wave, Rachel, so we know who you are. Rachel will be moderating the questions. Elizabeth Hernandez. Elizabeth, wave, Elizabeth, so we know who you are. Rachel and Elizabeth will be receiving the questions and gauging them so that we don't have repeat questions. So they'll look at them, make sure if they're repeat, they may just combine them into one question. So that's who will be receiving the questions as well. With that, we'd like to get started with our introductions. If our presidents want to say a welcome themselves.
Hey everyone, I'm so happy that everyone's able to be out here. My name is Pasindu. I'm a 4th year business management major, and this is my last year at Cal Poly, so there's that.
Again, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. And we were just thinking this is probably going to be the last time that Pasindu will have this opportunity. So I really want to thank him and Rachel for the leadership that they provided this year. This has been a very active ASI, and so we always enjoy working in partnership. So thank you, Pasindu, and let's ask questions.
Okay. We have an Instagram question. Are there more new buildings to come?
Well, let me just put in context. We do expect to have some new construction. I know there are some desires to have the second phase of housing. But one of our challenges here at Cal Poly Pomona are the seismic faults that are underground. And in fact, that's one of the reasons that we're going to have to take down the CLA building, and we're trying to preserve the classroom building. So a lot of what we're trying to do is, while we may not be able to build a lot of new buildings, we are going to work towards renovating buildings. The classroom building, as I said, we want to try and rehabilitate that building and make it much more in line with being at a polytechnic university. This is also why it's important. Many of you have probably heard of Prop 13 that's on the ballot. That's why it's important that we have people to come out and vote, because that Prop 13 provides bond money, and that bond money will be split between K-12, the community colleges, the UCs, and the CSUs. And so with that bond money, we will be looking and continuing to focus on upgrading buildings, and then trying to, where we can, look at the possibility of new buildings. The final thing I'll say is that some of you have been here and long enough to have been engaged in the campus master plan. And the final paperwork or the final drawings around that master plan will be coming forth soon. And so you'll get a chance, both for the new students as well as for those who've been here, you'll see the kind of future 5, 10 years worth of development that we're looking forward to.
Okay, thank you. What is the university doing to improve access to campus by active transportation such as bicycling?
Well, I'm going to ask our chief and others to weigh in on this. But as I mentioned with the campus master plan, that the plan is not just about buildings, but it is also about pathways. How will we move on the campus? And that includes looking at bicycles. It looks at where do we, in terms of shuttle buses, but also more equally important is how do we work with Transit Authority. This past, just before the end of last semester, I rode the Foothill Transit up to Los Angeles. We did the Silver Streak in order to get a sense of what that would be for our students, and we're working with Foothill Transit in order to determine how we can partner with them and provide multiple modes of transportation to and from the campus. But I'll let, do you want to say something? Good.
Yeah, since the last two questions were both about development, this campus is going to look very different in the next 20 years. We have the Lanchman project starting up, and then we also have several senators in ASI working to help with our shuttle system as well, specifically our class senator. This year has made grounds on that. So that's my only point before we hand it off to the chief.
Lastly, hello? So lastly, what the university has done is we've actually created a new position. And the position is now being filled by Danny Wu. Come on up here and introduce yourself. So Danny Wu is actually the Executive Director of Transportation and Planning. So we recognize these questions, and we recognize some of the deficiencies we had on the campus with how do we traverse throughout the campus with cycling, not just coming to the campus, but throughout the campus. And that's what Danny's position is here to serve and to help us out with. So you can introduce yourself and speak a little bit about what you do.
Great. Thanks, Chief. Again, my name is Danny Wu. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so proud to be back here as the new Executive Director of Transportation and Planning. I'd like to thank President Coley and VP Manning for their leadership, because it's really the leadership that recognizes the importance of alternative transportation that has brought me to this position. And there's this recognition that we need to change our thinking about how to improve access to campus. So I'm proud to be here. I'm also a Cal Poly alumnus. Go Broncos. And I believe it's probably the first time that there's a position like mine where I actually have a background in transportation planning. I studied transportation planning both here at Cal Poly as well as UCLA, so I'm thrilled to be here, and hopefully I'm looking forward to working with the campus community to really improve the access to campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we might ask them to stay at the microphone, because the next question says, what can be done to reduce the price of parking permits? And is it possible to have a payment plan for parking? Welcome to campus, Danny. Welcome to campus.
Oh, I think I'll take this one.
Right.
So right now, of course, parking reports to me. So the parking permit cost is based on the debt service. We're paying back for the structures that we currently have. So we're paying back about $2.5 million a year for parking structure 1 and about $2.7 million a year for parking structure 2. So that's kind of what sets the tone or sets the price of the parking permits. So it's all based on paying back those loans essentially over the next 28 years left on the second structure and 15 years left on the first. What we are doing is trying to keep the price exactly where it's at by trying to think of creative ways to get people to be able to park on campus or get to the campus using some of the ideas that Danny is going to bring to us. So while we may not be able to immediately reduce the price of the parking permits, what we are trying to do is stay committed to not increasing the prices of those permits. So hopefully as time goes on, as we pay some of those off, hopefully in my lifetime we'll be able to reduce those prices as we no longer have to pay those debts back. But that's where that goes.
Thank you very much. Our next question, when will CAPS, that's Counseling and Psychological Services, hire more counselors to better fit the demand of Cal Poly Pomona students? I saw Dr. Lette.
Yeah, and as she's getting ready to speak, let me say that I know that we've hired some new counselors, and we're significantly trying to reduce the ratio of counselors to students, so that we know that this is an area of great need. We also are trying to partner in the community so that we can make sure that students are provided access with services, with support as needed. But I'm going to ask Dr. Lette to come and continue sharing what we're doing.
Yes, so what Dr. Coley said is accurate. Hello, everybody. We are hiring some new counselors. We actually hired some already, and we're in the process of bringing on board 3 more, which will be hired and on campus ideally by late March, early April. So we will be having 3 new counselors. And we have created some partnerships with our Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health and some local clinics in this area, including Tri-City Mental Health, which works closely with our campus already. So that's what we're doing. We have a lot more that's coming. And I have actually our Associate Director of CAPS, and he could share just a little bit more.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Dr. Martinez. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm the Associate Director at Counseling and Psychological Services. I think what I would add is that, as you might imagine, because we are reducing the stigma on mental health, because we're increasing access for folks who are normally underrepresented, demand for services is actually increasing all the time. So that's why we're actually hiring more folks to come in to provide really good services for everyone, and we're really committed to it. If there's anyone who is a great advocate for mental health services, it's mental health services providers. So we are trying to make things better. We're continually trying to improve our intake system. We want to make sure that everyone who tries to get into CS will be seen in a timely manner. Sometimes it can't be immediate. Sometimes it can't be right in the moment when the student really wants it, but we try to make sure that we have crisis systems available for you to come in at any time during office hours, and even after business hours, we have a phone line for students to access. So we are trying our hardest, and we do thank you for your continued support of our services, because they are really important to student success.
Thank you. Thank you. Is it working? Okay. Let me ask you, if you would, to join me in a round of applause for the people that prepared our food this evening and served us this evening. Let's give them a round of applause. I'd also like you to join me in a round of applause for those that are serving us this evening, set up the tables and the chairs, and are doing all the work around the room to make sure we have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next question is, what do you have to say to the negative stigma that UCs are better than the Cal State system schools? Don't get me started. Okay. So that is, yeah. Pacindo, would you please?
We're going to be here forever.
Yeah, we're going to be here. Yeah. I'm going to take off my jacket right now, okay? Thank you.
I think no matter what, that perception is always going to be there with whatever university there is. You know, you can always compare one university to another, but I think we should take pride in that the CSU values itself on the amount of students it can admit to college. as opposed to other institutions. That's the one thing of a CSU. We pride ourselves in how many people we can graduate, and we pride ourselves on how many students we can get through and get a 4-year degree.
Let me, let's put in context that whatever the higher education institution is, when we think about in California, which I think we have some of the best higher education institutions in the country, and that includes the UCs. We have excellent privates, and of course, the outstanding CSUs. It is not an issue of better than. It is what type of experience do you want, depending upon where you are in your development, in your acquisition of education. So for example, when you would think about, as an undergraduate, going to a university, you would hope that you'd have a chance to engage with faculty, that you would be involved in their research, that you would have a chance to grow personally and professionally. That is the model for the CSU. That is not the model for the UC, but that takes nothing away from the UC. We have a different way of providing the kind of education that we think is important. And so a lot of times people don't understand. I've talked to parents subsequently who've remarked, my child went to a UC and they have yet to meet one of their professors. Well, it is, again, a different type of educational experience. And so what I always do, I don't get into this comparison. Certainly I love our rankings. I love what we do here at Cal Poly. But I am so convinced that the education that we provide here at Cal Poly, particularly focused on the polytechnic experience, as undergrads is going to launch you a lot further than the education you're going to be able to get at some of the other institutions. Because not only do you have the opportunity to work with and be a part of outstanding faculty, supportive staff, but you have the opportunity to take the theory, to understand the concepts, and apply them under the oversight of the faculty. And so when I talk to employers, when I talk to people in the community, and they rave about our students, what they're raving about is the kind of experience that they have coming across that commencement stage. So what we have said in part of our Future of Work initiative is to make sure that we not only care about what happens to you during the time that you're here with us, but when we launch you, when you go across that graduation stage, we want you to have the confidence, the knowledge, and the wherewithal on how to navigate what is going to be a very disruptive work future. And that comes with, and that's part of why we're even looking at what do we need to do on the front end. When you come in the door, what are the things that we can do to make sure you are well prepared as you navigate the institution in terms of knowing your strengths, in terms of knowing your interests, in terms of your connecting your interests to the myriad of programs, and in terms of testing out your ideas. One of the things we want students to do is to be engaged with labs, with projects, and so that they have a chance to try things out and it doesn't work. When I think about, for example, the Rose Float, those are undergraduate students. And so these students leave with a level of engagement that is atypical of UCs, atypical of many of the privates. So I'm gonna get off that soapbox right now, but I want you to, whatever choice you make, it is about what do you get, what is the growth, what do you receive as a result of that choice, not in comparison. One of the things that, when I first came here, we would talk about San Luis Obispo, and San Luis this. Well, the president of San Luis, Jeff Armstrong, I call him Papa Jeff. And San Luis Obispo is like the family. They're like our grandparents. We were launched from San Luis Obispo. We rave about San Luis Obispo. We are proud of that, but that takes nothing away from what we are about. And so our focus is being the very best Cal Poly Pomona. Who asked that question?
I don't know. But I know, and I'll say this personally, you can't put that perception on me, and you can't put that perception on the students in this room, and you can't put that perception on the students at this institution. Because we are who we are, and we are making it happen as the president described. So wherever that came from, not the person in this room, but those perceptions outside this institution, we don't buy it. Next question. We going. Sorry, that's, as a CSU alum, my wife's a CSU alum, my kids both are in the CSU. I live and breathe the CSU. CSU saved my life. What's the university planning on doing about the privacy breach from last fall? So I'm going to ask our registrar, I'm going to ask Daniel, and I'm going to ask our vice president for information technology to speak to that, okay?
All right, I'll go first. Whenever there's a breach, when students come to the university, you place a lot of trust in the university with the information that you provide to us. And we take a lot of efforts in trying to make sure we protect that information. And there's generally three ways in which information is compromised out of computer systems. The first way is, and you've read about this and you've seen TV news stories, is somebody comes, they compromise a system, and then they take it. Another way that it happens is that it's sent, or it's an accident happens. And then the third way that it happens is someone intentionally inside the organization sends information out. What happened last year was an individual accidentally sent information that they sent it to an email list that they didn't mean to send it to. So it was a mistake. So what the university has done, the place where that information was, the data where that information came from, the university did an exhaustive review to ensure that all of the information that was contained in that particular space was the right level of information that we should provide. And so we did make some changes to what was available. The second thing that we did is we made some changes to the way that listserv, and a listserv is something where if somebody sends information, that information is sent to everyone. We changed the way that listserv operates. And the way that we changed it is that if an individual sends something, before it's sent to everyone else, it has to be verified. And then the third thing that we do is we went and we reviewed all of the people that have access to that information to verify that they should have access to that information. Again, this was something that wasn't associated with a hacker. This is something that wasn't associated with something that was intentional. It was a mistake. And mistakes are really, really hard to control, but we did step back, we looked at all of the processes around what happened, and we made some changes. And hopefully those changes will prevent that from happening again.
All right, thanks, John. So this is a very important issue for the institution. This is what is called FERPA. I think a lot of you have heard about that. It's the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act. This was a leak as part of the institution. We took the responsibility for that leak. We have worked with the Department of Education to file a report with them and also file a corrective action with them to make sure that this does not happen to this institution again. So it's a very important activity that we have at this campus a very important policy that we want to make sure that we follow consistently for the institution, and that's just the one thing that I want everyone to take away from this. As far as the registrar's office is concerned, as far as this institution is concerned, we have to do everything we possibly can, and we've worked hand in hand with IT to make sure that any of these precautions that we need to have in place are there to protect your privacy, and your privacy is important to us. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I'm going to get you a microphone so we can hear you up here, okay? Can we get a microphone, please?
I am pissed off. That was my information being released. What are you doing for me? What are you doing for the other students like me?
There we go. Would you repeat it, please, so I can hear you?
What are you doing for the students like me whose information was released without my consent and other students like that? My information is out there. I can't get it back. What are you going to do? In my opinion, President Coley, who makes what, $500,000 a year, and other administrators like her should take pay cuts and at least donate those pay cuts as scholarships to the students of the College of Science. I don't think faculty and other students should be penalized for your mistake. I also don't think you should pass on the cost of that, the literal and figural cost of that mistake, to us in the form of higher tuition, class cuts, faculty having to take furloughs, unpaid leave. That's not fair to any of us. So what are you going to do about that? What do we get in return? Those are my ideas. What are yours?
I don't have an answer for you right now. But I would like to have, if you're willing, and I don't know if you're willing, but if you're willing, I would like to have a conversation with you about this. And again, I wish I had an answer for you, but I would like to talk, if you're willing to talk.
I am willing to talk. I would also like to say that what happened is also illegal, so keep that in mind.
And let me just say, you're absolutely right in terms of the mistake that the university made. They have put safeguards in place to try and prevent that. I can also appreciate that your information is out there, and one of the things that we need to make sure is that if for any reason you believe that as a result of this that you need to let us know so that we can then make sure that we are in touch with the proper authorities who should then handle whatever breach or whatever mishap you may experience. So we have, as a result of this, put safeguards in place. But I also want to, as John McGuthrie has indicated, that if you are able and willing to talk, to see and identify if you feel that there have been any breaches of your information as a result of this.
I am willing to do that, but I think we're going to also have to involve the other students involved from the College of Science.
I think that's a great idea, and I think we have the names of those individuals, and so I think we can always do a follow-up. I mean, one of the things that when you see breaches with such as Equifax and others, they always tell you, call this number, let us know, so that there can be some follow-up. And if we need to get to the proper authorities as a result of someone misusing that information as a result of this mistake. So, and I think we have the names of those individuals.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What, next question. What tangible decisions made on behalf of the racially targeted incidents from last semester can be seen and felt by students currently? Yeah. So what tangible decisions made on behalf of the racially targeted incidents from last semester can be felt and seen by students currently?
Let me just say, I'm not going to presume that that individuals are necessarily going to feel what we intend, but that is what is hoped for. And when I say that we have put a number of things in place, but that is not the totality of what we are doing. We have positions that we have hired, but we have also established groups to really operationalize and make clear what are those things, what is the sense of belonging, inclusiveness, what does that look like, how do students perceive that in different ways. We have also, in terms of looking at curriculum, looking at activities and programs, how do we make sure that those activities and programs provide the kind of message that we want for students. We have, in addition, I know that we have talked to some students one-on-one, we've talked to students in groups, and it is, as I said, it is for the students to identify whether or not those kinds of things that we hope for, how they begin to open up a dialogue, how they begin to have students recognize that indeed we need to do better, we are doing better, we will do better. I think, I know that ASI is also working with us. We have several positions that we have hired, that we are hiring, but it's also how do we look at our multicultural centers, what are the things that we need to do there, what is the training and development that we need for faculty, staff, students, and that includes administrators, and then how do we partner with the community? Because I think it's an important bridge between the university and the community to also be a part of this kind of dialogue. Sindhu?
Yeah, I'll actually call on our Attorney General to speak to a couple tangible things that we're working on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Manishan Singh. I kind of have a cold right now, so forgive me, but one of the main things that was repeated a lot was students would like to see mandatory bias training within our faculty and staff. And one of the reasons that through research we found that that's currently not occurring is because it's not currently in the union contracts for the faculty and staff here throughout the CSU. But through a little more research, we found out that those union negotiations are going to happen this summer. So in order to try to get that into the union contracts, what we're doing right now is we're trying to get a resolution through the California State Student Association to support having mandatory unconscious bias trainings within the faculty and staff contracts, such as the California Faculty Association, the California State Employee Union. There's several unions that contract with the Cal State system as a whole. So, but most of their union negotiations are happening this summer. So what we're trying to do is get a resolution from the entire Cal State Student Association to try to promote getting that into the union contracts. What I've also done on the side is email the chief negotiator from the CSU and tell him about these concerns and that we'd like to see mandatory unconscious bias training, not just here at Cal Poly Pomona, but throughout the CSU. What we've also done is try to create a student resolution to try to handle these campus climate issues. We have a meeting tomorrow, actually, with a member from the Brothers Movement, where we're going to try to go over this student resolution, go over this rough draft, and try to see what changes should be made and how we can partner with the students actually affected to write this resolution and make it something that we can all agree on.
And let me just say that I know that that has come up in discussions at the CSU, at the Simpson level, and as mentioned, I think there are 8 or 9 unions that each one, there'll need to be some agreement and negotiation, and so I applaud CSSA for, because I think having it as a system-wide, I think is also going to be important, because these are not issues that are just, or challenges that are just germane to or evident at Cal Poly Pomona, but it is unfortunately across the state, but across the country.
Next question. How much is the ASI fee we pay from tuition, and what services does that fund?
So there are actually 2 fees that ASI has. So we have one ASI fee that funds our programs and everything from financial services to our marketing team, all of that. So that's about $125. And then we have our ASI facilities and operations fee, which is roughly $300. And that funds everything that is in this building, the Bronco Student Center, and the BRIC, so the Bronco Recreation and Intramural Complex.
Let me just add that I think that it's important to understand that the revenue that we get from the state is primarily goes to the academic programs, what we call the kind of the stateside operations, and that anything, whether it is, as you heard from the chief, whether it's parking, whether it is dorms, whether it is the ASI, those are not paid or not covered by state tuition. And so that's why you have then the fee structure that is designated specifically for particular purposes. So I wanted to make sure that people understood. Sometimes the question that I received is, why aren't there just one fee? Well, because the fees are designated for distinct purposes.
Okay, thank you. Next question. When can Cal Poly Pomona get a free bus pass like Mount SAC?
That's what we're intending. We're working on that. As I mentioned, met with Foothill Transit. We're also looking, working with Danielle Manning is working with Foothill Transit and Francis Tavis, who's also here, our government and community relations person, to actually set up a transit center, because not only is it important to be able to use a bus pass, but also have a location that would be easy on and off. And so we are working. I don't know the timeline for that yet. Do you have any?
So we're working and aiming to offer the class pass hopefully in the fall semester of 2020. And then we're also hoping to increase access through the Foothill Transit Service with Silver Streak on campus, and then as President Coley mentioned, the transit center, to really improve connectivity. Part of this effort will really focus on an education campaign to highlight all these transit alternatives for students and hopefully promote transit use.
Okay. I'm going to read one more, then we'll spend a few minutes with the open mic. So if you want to stand and just talk from your seat or ask a question from your seat, we'll bring a microphone to you. We're trying to use as many methods as we can to grab questions, okay? This next question says, why don't we make it mandatory for students to take active shooter training online? It could possibly help save lives in the event of a next tragedy.
I'm going to ask the chief to talk about that, but we have been, it's not just active shooter, but what we've been looking at is a much more comprehensive safety awareness program, having the resources actually in the classroom, information in the classroom, but also an awareness that goes across the campus. You know that periodically there will be drills and tests, but we recognize that we really need to have a comprehensive approach and awareness, and I know the chief has been working on that.
Correct, exactly. So most of you probably know that we've actually been going to classrooms, and anyone that would listen to us, we go out and do the active shooter training. And I think having it mandatory would be a fantastic thing, and maybe that's the evolution of where we go. Right now, though, however, we are offering that training, at every step of the way, and people just call the police department, we come out and do it. What you will see is in August, I believe it's the second week in August, we will be doing a full-scale active shooter drill out towards the abandoned building, the CLA building. And it will be in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, Pomona Police Department, and the Fire Department. So it'll be full scale. So between now and then, we'll be sending information out for people to come see it. And it'll be an educational piece so we can actually see what it's like to be on the outside of something like that and see what the proper response would be. So whoever asked that question, thank you for asking that. That will be the evolution, but we are working our way towards that.
Thank you. Let's take some questions from the floor. Do we have more than one mic? So we have just one? We have one mic right now. We'll have two mics. So we'll swing here and work our way to here and work our way to the back. So there's a question right here next to you, then we'll come right to you at the table, okay?
I can only speak from the manifold of my own perception as a student and not an administrator. And my unfortunate observation has been that over the last couple of years, we've seen the death of 2 students and an officer. We have also seen the development of 3 buildings. And I think that right now, on the minds of a lot of us, is the question of mental health and safety. It's been addressed already that we have some counseling services, but from the manifold of my own perception, someone who suffers quite a bit with both a family and personal history of clinical depression, upon visiting counseling services, I was promptly prescribed Prozac, and little more, when both professional and community therapists have provided me better. I don't want platitudes or boisterous patriotism about the services that we already have available. I want to hear about our plan of action moving forward for tackling what is clearly an insufficient remedy to a problem, one that endangers the lives of my own brothers and sisters in academia. What more can we do?
Let me just say that I agree with you. There is a lot more that we can do, and I think you've heard some of the things from Dr. Letty. One of the things that I am also very pleased with, and when I say pleased, the increased desire and use of those services is a very good sign. And we need to be able to have a mix of services. So we've even talked about not only, as Dr. Letty mentioned, adding more individuals, but how do we place them and distribute them across the university? How do we connect them with the in residence halls? How do we communicate? And I know there is, in fact, Student Affairs has just prepared a document that goes out to faculty and staff in terms of what to do in these cases, so that if a faculty member or a staff member identifies, so they're not able to, quote unquote, diagnose, but they can certainly hear someone who is in stress and being able to refer that individual to services. We recognize that the other thing is there are individuals who don't necessarily understand how they might benefit from those services. So part of what we want to do in our planning is when you come in as a freshman, making it, communicating that it is in fact okay to seek help, and to these are the various services, because as mentioned previously, we've still had a stigma around using services, and I think that I have certainly seen in students who have engaged that they have benefited from it, and it has at least provided some perspective. I also know that, and I want to commend a couple of the officers who were able to intervene with a person who was about to commit suicide. And so we've got to find a way to communicate in multiple manners, not just online, but also with the total community understanding how you refer and still have the dignity and the privacy of the individual, because a lot of people are very sensitive about that. One of the things that we also need to recognize is that we all should take some responsibility for helping one another. It isn't something that just is administration. It isn't something that is just faculty or staff. Students also have an opportunity to say, why don't you go to such and such, or what about so-and-so? We also want to make sure that we've provided the training, the proper training for referral for individuals who have never had such training. I talked with a staff person in an office that was a student assistant, and the student assistant had an attempt of suicide. Well, that staff had not a clue, had thought there was something wrong, but just didn't know what to do. And you also have to be mindful of privacy, and you also have to be mindful of stigma. But it is an opportunity that we have to continue to grow and respond to these issues. I'm going to ask Dr. Letty to expand upon that, but it is important for all of us to have a hand in supporting and trying to give people and make people aware. I have referred individuals to off-campus services as well as on campus, and I think that we just need to make sure that we have the hours. How do we extend the hours of operation? How do we have opportunities? For example, the students who are in the residence halls who are here on Saturdays. Because there isn't a particular day of the week or time that these kinds of things happen. So thank you for that question, and keep on tabs on that as an institution.
Yes, thank you for that question. In addition to what I had shared that we have at CAPS, we also have an integrated care network with well-being coaches. So again, this is a person who you can meet with. It's not a clinical clinician. It's not a clinician or a therapist, but it's someone who can assist you to connect you to resources, whether they're on or off campus. And we have a full-blown suicide prevention plan that we are kicking off. We've actually been doing quite a lot the last 2 years. I don't know if any of you remember when we had Send Silence Packing here, which was to raise awareness and decrease stigma. Also, we have Sources of Strengths, and that's a really amazing program because it is really it's strengths-based. So I wanted to read to you the points. The point of this program, and I encourage you to get involved, it's very peer-based, so students who are interested in helping others and in helping themselves, they can join this project. So it's to spread hope, help, and strength in every corner of the Cal Poly Pomona community. Help students identify their strengths and supports and identify how to use them. And then break the silence when someone is struggling and connect them with the help that they need and that they deserve. So we encourage you to participate in that. That's just one part of our suicide prevention program. We have an array of things that we're working with, and I do encourage you who asked the question to reach out to us and to visit the Student Health and Wellbeing website, because we have a lot of information there in all the areas of the well-being cluster. So I do encourage you, there is a lot, I encourage you to check out the Integrated Care Network as well, because we're seeing a lot of good things coming out of there. Thank you.
Yes, our next question, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jay Littlejohn. And I wanted to know, basically, last semester, there were multiple acts of blatant racism towards black students, as well as many situations where black students' safety was put at risk. And I know there was mention of dialogue and, mandatory trainings and things to improve that, but we have a lot of trainings already in place that some faculty and staff have already admitted that, they skip through or they brush through so that they can get that done. And there are a lot of trainings in place and different dialogues. We had multiple town halls. And we were still not heard. We did not get answers to a lot of our questions majority of the time. So I want to know what exactly are going to be the consequences for those who violate these policies, because they've already been provided learning opportunities based off of previous incidents, and they've been given the grace to have an opportunity to learn from it and improve, and they still continue to make these mistakes. So what kind of consequences are going to be put into action so that these kinds of incidents can stop?
Let me just say that, first of all, when you talk about policies, and we need to deconstruct what we mean by policies, we certainly have policies that say that we as an institution will not discriminate against, and we identify that. We also are covered by federal policies. We also have a core value system that guides us. And so your question in terms of what are the consequences, there are differing consequences depending upon how we are, the nature of whatever constraints that we have. So for example, we talk about hate speech, and from where I come, I think it's abhorrent, but it is also a freedom that an individual has in the society and on the campus. Now, is that something we want to have happen? Absolutely not. And do we want to let people know that we don't like that? Absolutely. But what we need to be able to do is to continue, not only with the administration and faculty and staff, but also joining with students to identify that there are just certain things that are not acceptable, and to provide the kind of response, whether it is a reprimand, whether it is a conversation, whether it is some other type of action that has to take place. We also recognize that we have the responsibility to make sure that we respect the privacy of individuals. And so there are things that have been done that we are not going to communicate on what was done. Now, if I'm one who has experienced that, that's frustrating, because I want to know, did you get them? But what we recognize is that there are certain incidences where there was maybe intent, maybe not intent, but we're going to respond to those incidences from a value perspective about what we value here on this campus, what's okay, what's not okay, and then take the appropriate actions. And that's why we have various offices available to hear from students and to make sure that they know that they are heard. But let me just say that it is part of a continuous investment in living and demonstrating our values. And we want it so clear that those individuals who don't embrace that, they are themselves going to often self-select out, because it is going to be with all of us working together to show that this is what it means to be at Cal Poly Pomona. This is what it means to be valued. This is what it means to belong. And one of the things that I am very concerned about is that too often, and now I'm talking with faculty and staff, too often things are said and we don't step in and say that was not okay. And our students should expect that those of us who are in administration, who are in management, and you understand what we're trying to do, that you just don't allow others to say things without also letting them know. And you don't have to do it confrontationally, but you do need to be able to say, you know, you said this, but let me let you know what I heard, what that means, and did you intend to say that? Did you intend to make that kind of remark? People continue to do it because people are silent. And that is the one thing that when I think about Martin Luther King, he said, it is not the folks who are racist, it's not the folks who are bigoted, it's the folks who are silent. Because the silence, just by virtue of being silent, says that I don't have any problems with what you've just said. So all of us have to take some responsibility, because it is not going to be a policy, it's not going to be a reprimand, it's not going to be something that we have this training, and you're right, we have a lot of training, but what I'm also very aware of is I get feedback. People who've been here 20 years have never had that kind of training. This is the first time they're even talking about this in an environment. And it takes time. I have, as I've engaged with people across this university, and I have been to 4 separate universities. The culture of this university, the values of this university, the people. This university, these people here, we want to do the right thing. We care deeply about the students. Now, are there some that have different attitudes? Yes, just like there are in society. We represent the community. It's not that you come like through the car wash and all of a sudden you are washed free of all the stuff that you do and feel in the community. But when you do come, we have to work together in order to create and make people uncomfortable in saying and doing things that are hurtful and harmful. So I have lived those experiences, and it is not and what I want to be able to do is to make sure that future generations don't have to relive those experiences. And so I thank you for that question, and it is a need for us to continue to grow. But are we there? Absolutely not. Will we grow? Absolutely. And it is going to be with all of us having that common value that we care about one another, regardless of makeup, regardless of who we are. There is the intersection. The final thing is I'll say that what I've also learned is that we can get into these extremes, the black and white, but the work is in the gray. It is staying at the table, and it is disagreeing, and it is working through it because we care about one another. And our students should expect that of all of us. And it is about, again, not being silent, not allowing certain things to just pass because we're uncomfortable. Because every time you do, you're not acting on your values as relates to our desire to be an inclusive university. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. We have a question back here. Please.
Loved your answer. I felt like it was from the heart, and I see why they chose you to be the president of the school. Anyhow, my question is this. How difficult is it to fund a Native American powwow once a year here on campus? Because I know that my tribe has been here several times in the past. And also, should it be moved to Native American History Month? And I thought to myself, these are the 2 questions I wanted to ask, but I'd have to say this with the mental health thing, where I've seen people on campus crying And I took the time and stopped and asked, "Are you okay?" And I told that person that I fasted 4 years, 4 consecutive years, 4 days and 4 nights. And I'm supposed to take care of our bear dancers and the people. So when I see it, I stop and I do it because it's of the utmost importance, because you don't know what they're going to do or who they're going to do it to. And so, and someone actually stopped and asked if I was okay one day, which was really, really good. So it was going back to like how they were saying for the mental health, it's just not about putting stuff on the faculty or staff and all that, all those things. What it is just the students recognizing who your fellow classmates are. If they're by themselves, or if they're like cutting themselves or something in the restroom or whatever, or if their sleeves are rolled up and you happen to see some markings or something, there's telltale signs of those things. And so it's not really on the staff or the educators, it's really on the students to take care of each other as a community, all of us. Because the way I see it is like this: I don't like to look down at people, I don't like to look up at people, I like to look at people because we're all equals. We're all here, and I really love what you said about you went through your own stuff during the past. And so
Still going through it.
I bet I go through it too. The other day, a cop asked me, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting ready to go to the break right now." And I was in a like messed up shirt. And then he went by, and then he came by again, and like, I didn't feel threatened or intimidated because I knew that I was in a safe learning environment and that they're not here for the most part to harass people and stuff like that. And I'm a person of color, and I'm not that handsome of a guy, so he probably thought like he probably wanted to harass me. I don't know, but. But anyways, so I just feel a part of this community, and I hope that we can have an annual powwow here on campus to build community relations. That way, all people can come, and all community is welcome.
Yeah, let me, and we can talk again around, because I know that we have done that. I actually visited, I think 2 years ago, the Sherman School, and we've actually talked about how do we begin to reach out to underserved communities. And so let's talk about what that would entail in terms of a powwow.
We are actually 10 minutes past our time.